Commissioner Long, can you hear me? Can't hear you. Can we? Are you muted yourself? Are you muting yourself?
He is muted. You are muted. There you go.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if you can. I don't know if we can do it, but he's muted.
Unmuted.
We hear you fine now. Just about ready to start. Okay, I just want to freeze this in case something happens. Let me put my brain back into me.
So were you in Hawaii? So we were, yes. That was our guest. We had envy.
We're starting.
It was awfully nice. It was worthy of envy. Good for you.
And call the meeting to order. It is by the cell system time, 6:01. Welcome to the regular business meeting of the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission of March 12th, 2025. I'm going to ask for a roll call.
Commissioner Weiner,
Present.
Commissioner Bachman,
Here.
Commissioner Adams,
Present.
Commissioner Lant.
Present via Zoom.
Thank you. We have 5 sets of minutes here. I'm going to read them so everybody knows which meetings we're talking about, but I'd like to have unanimous consent to approve them. Does anybody have any changes or additions to any of these minutes? Excellent. These 5 sets of minutes are for, all of them are for this commission, regular business meetings December 4th, 2024, regular business meeting January 8th, 2025, work plan retreat January 17th, 2025, study session February 5th, 2025, and regular business meeting February 12th, 2025. So without objection, asking for unanimous consent, hearing none, minutes are approved. I don't believe there are any additions or deletions from the agenda. We have come already to item 5, which is public forum, and I don't have any forums. Okay, so there won't be any public people speaking on public forum today, which moves us right along to nothing on the consent agenda, which takes us to 7, which is the director's report, and our director, Rocky Houston, is on his way.
Thank you. For the record, Rocky Houston, Director, Ashland Parks and Recreation Department. We've come out of the snow and flowers are starting to finally sprout. Temperature was great, and you know, they're just not done with us yet. So we got some training done. We had 30 of our staff who were trained on CPR and first aid. They keep changing that every year. You know, is it breathing, no breathing, but it was well attended and people enjoyed it. We had 8 of our operations staff, maybe 9, attend a management and technical conference to do with water systems and facilities and those elements. Got great feedback. Although one guy came back with sick, so he had too much fun, I guess, over there. We have submitted and had a pre-application just a couple hours ago for the ice rink shelter, or the cover is the other term for it. And so we're reviewing the seasonality of the shelter, and so we're going through that process potentially to look at that, and that's something we're considering as we move forward to try to save money and continue to meet the needs of the community. Our golf program, as you'll notice, it's a little lighter than it was the year before. Usually we like to see the top lines bigger than the low lines, but we were closed for 10 days due to the snowstorm. That was a little out of the ordinary. So we did drop in utilization of rounds of golf and range balls, but we're hoping to have that bounce back. When it was 70 degrees out there, the course was hopping, so that's always good for us. Mulligan's is the little cafe, what we're calling the new little cafe. So we're gonna do a soft launch here real soon, hopefully this weekend, with a limited menu, and then into April have a full menu open up. We're gonna be operating that internally instead of having concessionaire. That's where it's gonna be limited, again, to try to control costs and continue to meet the recreational needs and provide an atmosphere to have people kind of hang out and have a community. We've got a brand new course map and tee signs out there to help orientate and make the playing experience better. And the driving range, they are just about ready to install the 12,000 square feet of ryegrass for a grass practice area, not just on mats. And so that'll be a great improvement. And we're hoping by May that that'll all be in and hopefully operational. Volunteers, Scotch broom parties, there's a special tool for getting those out, if you didn't know that, but they're boogers. We've got almost, thank you volunteers, all of the Scotch broom removed off of Halled Strawberry and the Lithia Hillside. It'll come back. It's one of those wonderful imported, I wouldn't call it a weed, but a plant that's noxious. We had an SOU football team come out, 11 other players, and move 25 yards playground chips just a week or so ago, and they want to come back. So hey, we'll definitely let them do that. And then the SOU TKE, I'm probably saying that wrong because there's probably a different way of saying those letters. Fraternity are part of an Adopt a Park, and they again installed some chips there at Hunter Park. Senior Services continue to do great work. Great partnership with Maple Ridge and the SOU Rotaract. I can't say that word. Rotaract Club. They provide Valentine treats and handmade Valentine cards for our patrons. There was an SOU class that was held that was a age-friendly conversations as part of lifespan development class. So we had SOU students coming in and participating with our community members there in the programs, and that was fun. That's, I think, one of 3 or 4 that are planned to occur. We got some new storage in there, which is an AV cabinet, so all those electronics are kind of locked up, as well as we freed up some inside space by having a storage facility on the outside, which is really allowing us to utilize more of the space for our activities in there. It's amazing how much use of those walls is needed for gentler yoga, chair yoga, and others. We had a jam session at the Nature Center with the Creekside Strings. It's a kids group, and I think there's going to be more humanities-focused sort of engagement over the coming months. We had 8 Nature Center program proposals that are now going to be in our summer play guide. So again, trying to continue to expand and diversify our environmental education programs. And we had a little rehab on the nature snake out there, this little concrete snake in the nature playground area. So that was rehabilitated, and he's all healed up, and the skin's been removed, and he's fresh and new. So we're looking to see how the kids like him once again. Recreation, it's official. Spring sports has started. Practices have begun. We had to scramble around a little bit due to some of the storm damage to get some of the things open, but we were successful. We have soccer field number 2 at North Mountain that is closed. We're continuing to wait for the grass to grow, and we're just waiting for those temperatures to change and continue to monitor that. Otherwise, all the other uses are going on out there. We had 20,970 admissions to the Ashland Rotary Centennial Ice Rink, which brought in about $120,000 in revenue. So that is great utilization. We had to close up for a while, of course, with the storm and some other things there, but it's don't think it's hit our highest utilization ever, but it's still going in the right direction. And the Daniel Meyer Memorial Pool, yes, it is almost time for swim lessons, and we'll be starting that recruitment for all of you out there in TV land to be a seasonal worker for us, lifeguard, swimming lessons. It's an amazing experience. Interested, not interested, tell someone who might be. We want to have a full crew this summer. The West team continued to do assessments and trees after the storm and a lot of mitigation cleanup to open things back up. Irrigation, we were moving to, again, kind of do a lot of storm continue. We still have a lot of material still to remove. We removed a lot of hazards. We got the fence for the pickleball court repaired. We still have some work on the lights to do, so one of those courts is still down. And we did a lot of great coordination, sort of shout out to the other departments to work with electric and other departments to remove hangers up in the tree with the bucket truck and other work out there to keep the park safe and open. Our East team, they helped clean out the barn. It's going to be used for some storage and programming for environmental education. That's kind of down below the nature center there. And they assisted the boulevards in herbicide treatments as we continue to abate the noxious weeds and those things to make that workload lighter for all of us. Janitorial, they've changed their schedule, you know, with more daylight. They've changed their schedule to allow to continue to operate and close those restrooms later and clean and those things like that. And they removed a walnut tree at Triangle in partnership with, I think another department was out there, and then continue to prep the fields, even with that snow load. Their trails team is continuing to do a lot of cleanup, doing log outs, removing all kinds of trees off of bridges and trails. Snow loads finally got to a point where we can start to get out and look a little bit more, and all of our users and volunteers are pretty apt at telling us where the issues are up there in the watershed and other areas. We worked with the HOA up at the Liberty Street property that's to remove some downed trees. I think there's actually some burning going on right now up there, permitted for some of the brush pile over some of the work we've done over the winter. And yeah, we even were out in the Pioneer Street parking lot removing a tree from a poor little Subaru that went to war with a tree during the storm. Again, is just to continue to try to make sure we're doing good work. The pros plan, we've got, as of yesterday, 655 completed surveys. We continue to modify access to where you don't have to access all the questions. Do those things to make it as easy as possible. If you haven't done it yet, it's not too late. We have until the 15th, so we have 3 more days to complete that survey. We've also started our focus groups, so we already held one with senior service programming on Monday. We'll have another one tomorrow on the Trails focus group, and we'll have 2 more next week. The big public meetings are going to start with the kickoff on April 8th, and that'll be at the Senior Center. And then we have neighborhood focus groups where anyone in the community can come to on April 17th, 23rd, and 24th. Everyone should start seeing some marketing and promotion next week for the kickoff meeting and the following week for those other meetings. We'll be announcing all of those 3 meetings at once. They're designed to be for the north end of town, the central part of town, and the south end of town. So it should be fun. With the plan, we've got a timeline, six phases for the pros planning process. We are started off several months ago with the initiation phase and started collecting the existing conditions. We're just closing out that session right now with the focus group work that we're doing. Then we'll be soon transitioning over to the kickoff meeting, and to make it easier to read. From there, We will have an interim meeting, which will be really focused on community values. We'll have another survey that'll go out and more work to come back and really identify what we value, what our priorities are in regards to those things that we want to do as a community. From there, we will work on the long-range vision, capital facilities plan, which is a 20-year lookout for our capital improvements and replacements, deferred maintenance. Work on an implementation strategy, and then we'll get that back here for you guys to kind of review in a 30-day public comment period. Then we will have a session where the public can come here and provide comments to you directly. We'll gather all that information up and make any final adjustments to the plan and bring it here for adoption. And in a perfect world, before the snow falls again, we'll be back and ready to go. So we're already a third of the way through the process, even though it feels like we just got started. Projects East Main, we're so close. Hopefully by this weekend, we'll have 100% design plans that we'll then be able to confirm finally our fiscal capacity for that phase one, and then get it out to bid and get it going. Under tennis courts, we've held a kickoff meeting with our design team, and we got a little bad news in that there's a project with 8 courts, kind of like ours, up in the Portland area, and it was $2 million. This was the bid price. So different market up there, I keep telling myself. However, we're continuing to watch that as we continue to move forward, and in May, we should have that 30% design. Again, the goal is to have construction occur hopefully in that August, September, October timeframe. The Butler Perazzi Fountain, we are reviewing our 60% plans for construction. We'll be having an ARG site visit next week, and they'll be meeting with community development for a pre-application meeting. And then we will move forward and again identify that final scope based off of our fiscal capacity. And I don't know why I have this in here. That's weird. It appears that this is a glitch in the matrix.
While you're doing that, what's the acronym ARG for those of us that are acronym challenged?
I believe it is Architectural Resource Group. I got confirmation. So forget those 3 slides, and that is the director's update.
And I see that we have Commissioner Lant back on the screen. Commissioner Adams.
I promise not to hold you to the answers to these questions, but I'm curious if you have an estimate for a break ground for East Main Park and Butler Perazzi.
East Main, we're hoping for an August, September timeframe. Hopefully, or maybe earlier, depending upon our bidding process and our contractor's readiness. Butler Perazzi, I believe it'll be a fall. It'll disappear, and then in 26 it'll come back, and most of the work the people will see will be next year. We're working on getting a sign as well that'll kind of have that there, and maybe at East Main as well, kind of just one of those tracking in the progress sort of signs to help inform the public where we're at.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for the director on his report? Excellent report, thank you. Next time, I'd like to be at the creek when the strings on the creek are there. Where can I find that schedule?
We can get that schedule right to you. It's probably on one of our websites.
Probably is, I have to go.
Their spring concert is this weekend at the Methodist Church.
Really?
Both of my kids are fiddlers.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
As it gets warmer out, they'll be moving outside too, at the nature center.
Great.
The summers in the park are so neat. I remember last summer walking through the park and overhearing some visitors to our town saying, I was walking through the park and there were children wading in the creek playing fiddles. And I was like, where am I? They were very impressed. That was pretty cool.
That's a wonderful program. Okay, we are now entering the business items on our agenda, number 8. And the first one is the fiscal year 26-27 department work plan, which these are all, there's 5 action items on the business plan this evening. And Director Houston will cue that up.
Yes, so as you know, over in a galaxy far, far away, we've continued to have goals and objectives being created on an annual or biannual basis to help move the agency forward. Generally, that's been based on a budget cycle, and this has served as a linkage with strategic direction and operational actions. The minor change in semantics and words that we've changed this year is because we're having a strategic plan, which we're going to be setting out long-range goals, where we've changed this to be the department work plan instead of goals. Otherwise, the same intent there is these are the things to kind of focus the department on as we move forward in the next budget cycle. Based off the feedback that I heard in the past meetings, I've tried to articulate into the work plan those specific projects that we're working on that have been a part of prior adopted capital improvement plans and the Lithia Park master plan, work plan priorities, if I'm using the right words there. So this should be consistent with our prior work. It's just there's a little bit more information there if you weren't aware of what projects were in the CIP and things like that. In the packet that everyone has online, we have a copy of the CIP that was adopted, as well as the full work plans for the Lithia Park Master Plan. Staff's request is a motion to adopt the fiscal year 26-27 department work plan.
Could we get Commissioner Lant on, please? Commissioner Adams?
Yeah, I had a question on reviewing the work plan. I'm wondering how it is that the Siskiyou Mountain Trail reroute project I'm wondering how it got onto the CIP. What was the process by which we're having this here?
Great question. So we did an inventory of projects and deferred maintenance, and it was one that was brought forward by staff that had been on their list for several years to do a reroute to make a more sustainable alignment. And so that's where how it got added into, and then based off of the scoring through our rubric, it scored at a higher level.
I mean, I guess I have some concern that, we have a Trails Advisory Committee. I reviewed all the notes going back to its founding in 2021. And I see that there was some conversation about this back in 2021 and that there was maybe intention to create a work group. I can't tell that the work group was ever created. If it was, it didn't report back to the Trails Advisory Committee. It seems like assigning our entire portion of our CIP that's dedicated to trails to this project without any input from our advisory committee is something that I'm concerned about as the liaison to that committee.
Understood.
And I think with the new TAC in place, that and the process will be much clearer, that shouldn't repeat itself. And I think you're the right liaison to watch that.
I would further say that because we're in the decision-making point now, we don't necessarily have to put this project forward for the biennium without support from the TAC.
Any of the other commissioners have comments or questions about this before we have a motion? I'm looking at Commissioner Lant. Looks like would like to speak.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the Trails Advisory Committee, my understanding is that they're to help support the staff and ultimately the commissioners make decisions. And there's got to be some value to the staff coming up with this. Most everything has come through the trails, which is great. But if one comes through the staff, I mean, it's just supporting a different way, a different process. So it may not be, I'm not sure we ever had since there was no charge, it isn't clear what should have gone through Trails Committee and what shouldn't. In the future, hopefully we'll have a charge and that will be more clear.
Thank you. Okay, motion, please. Kind of flagged, okay. Commissioner Adams.
I may or may not get votes for this, but I would move that we support the work plan as presented with the extraction of the Siskiyou Mountain Trail project until it gets consideration from the TAC.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, but I'll second that motion for, to start discussion on that so that we can flesh that out fully.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I think I started discussion on it. I'm not necessarily opposed to this work being done. I spend a lot of time on those trails, and I know there's room for improvement. But I think since we have an advisory committee, and people, including staff, have just spent a lot of time selecting really good members. And we have a limited budget. I would like to see some impact or some input from the community on where we want to prioritize this limited pool of money going. And to speak to the larger motion, everything else on here I think looks great, and I'd love to support it.
I guess the question that I would have, and as a relative newcomer to this particular process, I wasn't around when that was all created. It seemed as though that was already identified as I came onto the commission as a need, and I presume defined as a need by staff. It sounds like there's a pretty major rework going there. I spend some time down there, but not a ton. That's not my primary trail, so I can't speak to the condition of that particular trail. But I assume that there was identified some significant need there that required remedy, and that a process had been undertaken to develop that as a remedy. And I wonder if we pulled that off, would we be looking at a year before we came up with any recommendations to do anything else with that money anyways? And that would that put us back significantly to accomplish that work and any future work? Because I don't really feel like the Trails Committee was fully functioning at the time of this particular decision. It predates it, as far as I can tell, and therefore I feel like it could be moved forward, and future Trails decision should absolutely go through the committee.
My thinking on it at this point, and it may go to what Commissioner Lant was saying, was that do we want to exclude from consideration as a commission recommendations from staff that don't necessarily come through the Trails Advisory Commission process going forward? Now that we can clarify that with our charge, which we're going to talk about here in a bit, but in terms of retroactively, I probably would not support this at this point with the extraction portion of it because it just seems, I'm not as concerned perhaps as you are, Commissioner Adams, about the budget issue. If we have shovel-ready projects, I think we can find a way to fund them, but I can't point to a number. I think we just maintain some flexibility, and so that this doesn't impact the other trail ideas which is what we're going with our eyes wide open. Commissioner Long.
I actually have a question for staff. Does this trail have a name?
Yes. And you've got me on my feet as always with the name for stuff. I want to say, and Justin, help me, or Commissioner Adams, help me if I've got this wrong, but I believe it's and there's two trails right next to each other. I think it's the Red Rabbit White Rabbit.
There's White Rabbit Trail. There's a short section of trail called Red Queen there.
Ergo my-
And then there's the Mike Utoff Trail as the pedestrian trail through
So-
that area.
If I may, to clarify in regards to where we're at in this, is that we've not selected a means or measures or those things. Our intent was to, with the adopted CIP that identified that project through the public process, is once we got into next fiscal year, would be to determine what section specifically work on based off of what we think the money is, look at hiring a professional trail builder or a hybrid contract to then help us develop what that section is. So what I'm trying to say in a long way is that we've got a lot of work ahead of us in scoping before this project gets completed, which I believe would help engage our current or newly formed Trails Advisory Committee in that process, as well as potentially other trail users.
So what I'm hearing is would take place in the next fiscal year before any money would be spent, okay? Back to Commissioner Long and then Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, I asked a question, but now I have a follow-up to that. I recall that trail was discussed at the Trails Committee meetings because it was one of the trails that Siskiyou Mountain Bike Association or Rogue Valley Mountain Bike Association brought forward. So I think it actually, no action was taken, but it was discussed at those earlier meetings. And I will say again that I think that leaving, I don't always support what staff brings forward, but this seems pretty minor, and it seems like as stated, there's a lot of room for flexibility if there's if some other project seems critical to put before it. So I would vote no on this motion. I will vote no on this motion.
Commissioner Adams?
It just seems to me that given the level of planning, and again, I'm not opposed to something happening at Siskiyou Mountain Park here, that taking it off the CIP, allowing our newly reformed TAC to do some work on this doesn't even necessarily preclude it happening in the next biennium. But it seems to me that we're putting the cart before the horse by not allowing our newly selected advisory committee to advise us on where our limited trail dollars should be spent. And so to sort of say, we're gonna dedicate all our money to this project without any input from the advisory committee, and we're not really sure actually what the project is gonna look like. It just doesn't seem like it's a decision that we need to make tonight, that we can decide on everything else other than this and allow our advisory committee to advise us.
Point of clarification, Commissioner Adams, what I heard you say is that you want to remove this project and the funding from our budget.
Correct.
Which would then that would not allow us to do any work next biennium on this project. And I just want to make sure I'm following what I'm hearing, just so that I want to make sure that if we do decide on a scope of work and a project with the Trails Advisory Committee, that we have the resources to actually do the work. And the way I interpreted it, that we'd be removing this $75,000 from our capital budget.
Which is a problem. So I'm going to not, excuse me, not support the motion.
It feels as though there's a way to approve funding for trail work with deference to the Trails Committee evaluating the project. So I mean, I would not approve. I would not support removal of funding for trail work from our budget. I would not want to do that. I would want to, but I am open to creating a path. So potentially amending the process to allow the Trails Committee to evaluate that particular project in comparison to other opportunities prior to. But I would really not want to remove that from the budget.
Okay, thank you. And that's, of course, exactly what the Trails Advisory Committee is going to be tasked to do. Commissioner Adams.
Given the clarification from Director Houston that this would remove all funding from trail work, I withdraw my motion.
Okay. Well, actually, I think we should vote and straight up and down vote on it.
Because since Commissioner Adams withdrew, I think the motion dies.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's why we have a parliamentarian. Thank you.
I was keeping track, and thank you, Rocky, for that clarification, because I was also, in my head, going there as well.
Okay, thank you. Well then, how about another motion? We want to take action on this item. Who would like to make a motion? Commissioner Lund.
I move that we approve the work plan as presented. And when I speak to the motion, I'll explain what my thinking.
And a second?
I'll second with a comment that I hope that we are able to wrap the Trails Advisory Committee into the process of trail evaluation, this one and others.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiner? Okay, Commissioner Lund, would you please speak to your motion?
Yes, it sounds like the work on Siskiyou Mountain Park Trail is not imminent, and we can always come back and move money around as long as we have the money in the CIP. So by approving the work plan, we've approved money for a specific trail, but there's no reason if another trail becomes shovel-ready beforehand that staff can't come back to us after being advised by the Trails Committee and the commission be advised by the Trails Committee that we could put move the money elsewhere. That's the easy part. As was pointed out by Director Houston, the problem is if we don't have the money in the CIP. So I don't really see a problem with just approving it as is. The flexibility remains.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiner, like to speak to your second? No. Commissioner Adams? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachmann,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Lund.
Yes.
All yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Move on to number 2 in the business items tonight, and that would be the fiscal year 26-27 department budget recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. At this time, I'll bring up Brandon Terry as well, who will be taking on part of this presentation. I also want to acknowledge that the Finance Department Director, Marianne Berry, is in the audience here in case there are questions that are above my pay grade as we go through this process. I'll start the first couple slides and then I'll transition over here to my esteemed colleague. So as a reminder, our budget direction this year was to keep our personnel and FTE with no changes, sort of a flat line budget. To our material and supplies remain at a 0% increase. Oftentimes, a lot of times there's a 1%, 2%, 3% sort of inflationary element to that. And then any requests that are beyond those sort of numbers, we are to create budget requests and present those to the finance department and to the city manager. And that work will begin next week in reviewing those. And so what's remaining is we still need to get the fund balance and revenue projections to determine how many resources we have. Other department requests need to still come in and get reviewed for the city manager, then can propose a budget that is balanced between our resources and those requests. And part of that is this financial outlook. So as you can see, the expenses for personnel and M&S continue to rise. And so do revenues, but just not at the same rate. And as such, with the potential of a recession, other capital projects citywide that need to be done, we're trying to take a fairly conservative approach to continue to make sure that we can deliver the services that we're mandated to do. So with that, we have an operating budget.
Just a clarification, that last chart refers to the city overall? The
Yes.
city's financial
Yes.
position? Thank you.
Thank you for that. So our baseline budget was a different number before. I think it was 14 million and a little bit. That has now been updated to 15,060,235 based off of internal services. And this is where I'll turn it over to Brandon to kind of go through the big numbers. You want to switch chairs or you want me to? Perfect.
Brandon Terry, Senior Administrative Analyst. Good evening. Yeah, the baseline was just over 14 million, and then when we initially got the direction, and then since then, 1,054,000 has been added for internal charges, fleet maintenance, and insurance services. So that is why it's gone up a little bit, but those aren't costs that we have come up with. Those have come from finance. So what we wanted to, getting into what we were looking to do this biennium, putting aside the direction, is have personnel have a Park Tech 1 for East Main Park plus O&M costs. We're regaining the community center, Pioneer Hall, and other recreation programming. We're looking for a recreation coordinator to assist with all that extra work, and the O&M costs to run those buildings, Boulevard's program personnel and O&M costs, senior services. We found an empty FTE, a vacant FTE that we were wanting to transfer from golf to senior services. That is technically on hold at the moment. And then equipment repair and replacement program. There's an ER&R program that we haven't contributed to this biennium, but we'd like to get back into that so we can lessen the burden when we need to replace equipment that is seen the end of its life.
Can we go back to that last slide and just clarify that last item? What are we doing now, and what's the new approach, and what's the difference in the financial impact?
Oh, so
on the equipment repair and replacement program implementation versus what's happening today.
So what's happening today is every biennium, we we put forward a capital request in our budget to replace certain items. We're currently about 26 items behind our schedule for replacement. And so to provide more predictability, what we're looking to do is think more like lease payments, where we make lease payments off the proposed replacement of a piece of equipment. And then that money sits in the fleet account to then be a part of their budget to acquire that. And what we're looking, this proposal here is to add about $70,000, I think is the right number, maybe it's 80,000, for those pieces of equipment that we've picked up this biennium, is start that process slowly to where we are adding those dollars in there, sort of like those lease payments. So now we're starting to create a sinking fund for that future replacement. The goal is to create predictability in replacement so we don't have older equipment that's not meeting the team's needs or has a high repair cost down into where we're functional. And so this is what the rest of the city departments are doing, and we're trying to be in compliance with city practice.
So as we acquire new equipment, that'll roll into the program, and any older equipment is replaced.
That's our plan, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we are looking at budget increase requests that are, TBD, but that includes $387,000 in personnel. That is a new recreation coordinator, a new Park Tech 1 for East Main Park starting in FY27. So really 1.5 FTEs. And then identified an additional 50,000 between shifting the golf tech to senior services and a park tech might have been budgeted too low, so just a little bit more. So that's where the 387 comes from. And then for materials and services, most of these costs are associated with Pioneer Hall and Community Center and East Main Park. So with new responsibilities come new requests for money. And the golf course is in the process of reopening Mulligan's, or reopening the restaurant named Mulligan's. And the manager there Manager Weaver has identified about $67,000 in costs for the biennium, over above what he's already needing. And then the $80,000 mentioned earlier for the equipment replacement transfer fund. And then we're also requesting $70,000 additional capital outlay for equipment that in the park's operation budget. And it's kind of to get, I believe we have a lot of equipment that needs to be replaced. And so that was the thinking behind that. So those additions on top of the baseline come to $15,795,925. And plenty more slides to go, so please don't hesitate to stop me for any questions. So the next slides are going to be by program. What this slide has is FY24-25 as a comparison to the orange column, which is the baseline, column being our baseline plus additional asks. You'll also see that because we like to make things difficult, we also wanted to take this opportunity to move personnel from different programs, different divisions that maybe line better up with their duties, or where we might be able to use an FTE better. So that's why we still have 37 in this orange column for the baseline 26-27, but you'll see we have changes. For example, park superintendent was in parks administration. We think it would be better to have him in parks, that position in parks operations. And open space had the volunteer and services manager Also want to move that position to operations, plus an FTE in open space. We want to move to operations. And yeah,
That position in open space was our volunteer coordinator, and seeing how they're holistic for the whole system, it seemed to be a better placement. The real goal here really is to try to align our operations staff in the operations budget, our programming staff in the program budget, which will help us do a cost recovery when we get to that policy, and those analyses should be less work for Brandon here to get those numbers.
Yeah, this is my experience in the accounting world. This happens all the time, and so we're forever explaining variances on the line items by transfers of the way we account for things. So I'm looking at the bottom line, and at this point, the we had 35 FTE, but in fact there were 37. They just weren't filled. So we're going to fill those, and then I'm looking at the bottom line FTEs now. So we're adding 2 if we get the green column through the budget process. That's our request. So the way I'm looking at this is that the middle column, which came from the direction from finance, is kind of a bottom end of what we're going to end up with, and that what we're asking for is about $800,000 more. Is that number right?
735.
And that covers the various things that we're having to work on that we didn't even have in our portfolio this year, like the Pioneer, like the community center, et cetera. Okay, so that's what, I'm just trying to make sense, saying this back in language that I hope people watching at home will understand what this ask is, which is to be able to do the work that we think we're going to be tasked to do.
That is correct, Chair Bachman.
Thank you. Are there any more slides?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Can we just go to Commissioner Lant on Zoom and see if he would like to ask any questions at this point? And if anybody else wants to too, I hate to, it's hard to take something this complex all the way to the end. So it's nice to have breaks during the presentation to ask the questions. So Commissioner Lant, do you have any questions at this point? Or
Well,
comments?
if you just go back that last slide, I want to do a calculation, and you put that last slide up, that would be helpful.
So you keep talking, we can't see you.
This one? This one?
I'm not seeing, it isn't displaying.
1 second, technical difficulties.
We're seeing the slide
Muzak
here.
will begin.
Do you want the slide with the 3 columns, Commissioner Lant, or this one?
Just whatever the last one was, yeah.
Yeah,
this is where
it's
we
up
stopped.
now.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
I'm
I
not sure
think
why it's not working, but it's,
Yeah, it's funny, it's been working all along, but it's not working now. It looks to me, there we go. Okay. It looks to me like 14.4, difference between our fiscal year 24-25 and fiscal year 26-27, the baseline, is an increase of 4%. And then if it's, so I'm just trying to confirm that with you. And the difference between, I'm using sort of rough numbers, 15.8 divided by 15.8. Okay, ooh, whoops. Let me do that again. 14.4 divided by.
It would be about a 9%.
The first 2 columns, so it's not that much.
Well, I meant from blue to green would be about a 8 or 9% increase, and it's
A
4%.
total increase, yeah. Okay, that's what I was getting at, is I just wanted to have you verify that. So thank you, that's all I need.
Okay, anybody else while we're stopped here? Okay, continue.
Okay. And so just to cover the FTEs real quick, golf, removing a Park Tech 2, moving that person to that position to operations, and
Park Tech 1.
yeah, Park Tech 1, moving that to senior services as an administrative assistant. And so, yep, that is the general overview for each one. And now I'll go through these quickly. They're more just to give you a sense of a visual sense of the changes as compared to FY24 and FY26, 27. So please stop me if you need me to go any deeper. But for Parks Administration, the orange bar is our current allocation request. That is because the park superintendent has been moved out to parks operations. In terms of the materials and services increasing, the broad strokes is we consolidated and increased our advertising costs. Consolidated is in terms of took from rec, programs, golf, and just put it into admin just for ease, because we were seeing when you have so many categories to charge to, sometimes people pick and choose, and then it gets a little bit messy. So if we just have one bucket, it would help things out. And we can still track with cost allocation codes. So it's not that, spending will get lost. And the largest increase is a $120,000 increase to one of our internal charges, insurance services. So, and that's open space. This one is where we've moved the volunteer and special events manager and Park Tech 1 to park operations. That's why the personnel costs are lower. Materials and services, more or less just reduced material costs and professional services. And most of these moves are just a reflection of how we executed this biennium and the previous with the information available. So we're just trying to put the money where we're using it, but it's still there for those who need it if that time comes. Park operations, added park superintendent, added the volunteer manager, added a
Commissioner
park.
Bachman,
Oh,
I'm sorry. Rick
Yeah,
Lunt has
yeah.
a question about one of the slides, so I just wanted to. acknowledge
Yes,
that.
Commissioner Lunt.
Let's see. Yes, I guess I'm not understanding. It looked to me like your personnel costs, personal services. What are personal services? Please clarify that.
payroll.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Well, I don't get how you're showing us that it's gone down.
Sorry. So we're going by program, and we are moving personnel, so between programs. So our administration has gone down the cost of the park superintendent, and then on.
Okay, so what you're doing is you showed us the big picture, and you showed us that the amount it was up, and now you're showing us piece by piece. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
No, yeah, thank you for the clarification. And to that point, you'll see for park operations, $1.5 million increase just on the baseline. And that's the park superintendent, the volunteer manager, a Park Tech 2, and 2 Park Tech 1s being moved into park operations. The 130, the green at the top with the 137, that is the Park Tech 1 for East Main Park starting in FY27. So the green shows our request above the baseline. So if you see a green, it's above the baseline. Materials and services for parks operations. The big items, increased mall tools and op supplies, increased building maintenance, increased utilities by about 110,000. And the way we do utilities is that they all get charged out of Parks Ops. So even for water for the senior center is being charged to park operations. So all the utility costs come out of park operations. And then increased fleet and maintenance replacement costs with the rest. And then in capital outlay, we're asking for an additional 70,000 in equipment above the baseline. Recreation programs, pretty steady. We are requesting a recreation coordinator, which is the green 231,000 for the biennium. And then for materials and services, an increase to professional services. That's due mostly to the swimming pool and ice rink costs. Staff costs. Thank you. Recreation golf, this is a reduction for personnel services for payroll because we've converted a Park Tech 1 to senior services and moved a Park Tech 2 to park operations. And then for materials and services, pretty steady, save our 67,000 request in order to fully operate the new restaurant, which we hope is revenue neutral, if not more so. Recreation, environmental education, maybe better known as the Nature Center. The reduction in personnel services is just it looks as if the group health insurance was budgeted too high for FY 24-25, which the 26-27 is just an adjustment to actual costs. So that's the only change there. And then for materials and services, it has been reduced. Office supplies, rental charges, and professional services were reduced to better match how spending has gone this past biennium. But that was with only one staff, with a new manager. That could certainly increase, and but we can certainly move things around to better accommodate if that's what Manager Kame needs.
When Brandon's talking about moving things around, so we budget to the bottom line, and so that allows us more flexibility to where we don't have to go back through a budgeting reallocation process. So just we set these because we think these are our targets and we're going to hit them, but at the same time we're given that flexibility just as a more for the audience and out in TV land potentially.
Right. What we're talking about is the way we internally allocate the funds internal to the department. So we have a certain number, that $15 million number, and these are essentially estimates of where we expect to spend the money, but that might change, and that's something we determine here that does not need to go to finance.
Correct.
Now, if we were to suddenly have $2 million more in expenses than we thought, now we're talking about a budget adjustment, and that involves talking to the lady in the audience.
I'll ask one question along those lines that I think I know the answer to. We aren't under this new budget process expecting a single human to do everything at the golf course. I just want to give you an opportunity to talk on that.
Great question, Commissioner Adams. No, actually what we're trying to do is separate our recreation programming, our customer-facing costs away from our operational costs. And then that way, when we are doing cost recovery, most other departments do it that way from a cost recovery. Right now, they're blended, and so that makes it harder for us, and we're trying to do our cost recovery. So the 2 FTE that have been out there for the last biennium will remain out there. In addition, the rest of our operation team supports them as they support others. So we're like a drove of locusts going around doing work, but we do have 2 dedicated staff that will remain out there.
I had a feeling that was the case, and I just didn't want anyone at home imagining somebody flipping burgers, operating the driving range, and mowing all the grass themselves.
That's a great point, and I'll just also add that the payroll for the golf does include the 3 temporary employees, part-time employees that we do have. Yeah.
Commissioner Lunt?
I'm reaching back just a little bit to an earlier part of the conversation. And I get that you've moved some people just from one category to another, and they're really doing the same job, but it just makes more sense to put them in another category. But one I didn't understand is, I think you said that a park tech was going to senior services, and I think that requires more explanation, because it's not the same as moving a park tech from open space to parks operations.
Thank you, Commissioner Lott. So the position that we now have that is a Tech 1, we are reclassifying, or I have a fancy word, I think schmoozle. I can't remember the word I try to do it, but we're reclassifying that as a administrative assistant to take on the, used to have a 0.75 FTE that we lost during the COVID process, and we've had a temporary employee in there, which has allowed us to increase our utilization significantly over the last couple of years. And so we're now nearing and will exceed 20,000 user occasions there. And so to ensure that we can continue to grow and meet that use level, that's why we've reallocated that based off of those use levels. In addition, we are working on other operational things to continue to try to reduce the things that we are doing and trying to do it more effectively. However, we continue to always face, like every department is figuring out, when we squeeze one place, it gets small in another. And so we'll continue to have that process. And based on how the other side of this budgeting process goes and what that final number is, and through our strategic planning, it'll really give us guidance in regards to how we continue to move forward and try to meet the community's needs.
And this is an FTE, this is not an employee that's transferring.
That's a great clarification. Sorry that I didn't, yes.
Right. Commissioner
I
Lunt?
think that answers my question. This does not reduce the number of FTEs in parks operation then.
If we get the proposal, so we had 2 FTE this year that we thought were unfunded, and we identified that late that they aren't funded, which was a gift to allow us not to have to ask for additional FTE, because that was part of the thing that we were considering. So one of those we're hiring right now to meet that operational need. So there's an additional FTE that we haven't had for the last couple of years. And then we are taking that one away. That will be replaced with the replacement with East Main. It'll still create a workload issue for us to manage, and there'll be certain things that we won't be able to address. Going back a couple meetings ago when we were looking at our maintenance management plan, and we identified that we have about 33% of the operations staff to meet our routine maintenance tasks that we've identified. So that will continue to be a real world problem we'll continue to address. But we still have that same issue in recreation and senior services, and we're just trying to be as equitable and meet the needs as fairly as we can. And we have 22 FTE in the operations side, and we only have 2 in the senior services program. And so this would allow us to stabilize that programming.
Commissioner Lunt, is that?
I would like to follow up.
Okay.
So it sounds to me like if we don't get the 2 extra FTEs that are being requested, take us from 37 to 39, then we will actually have lost one park technician And if that's the case, that to me is problematic because that's the core, the most core thing we do. And I think that's where we get the most concerns from citizens is when we don't keep our parks up. So could you please address that? Am I not hearing this right?
So we've been operating on fewer staff. And so right now we have 2 less FTE than we're showing that are out in the field. And we're filling one of those positions now, so we'll be at 36 FTE, which will continue to be. So you are accurate that if we don't get our elements and we move the one operations person to gosh darn it, to the senior center. What we did move was the golf program. So we're trying to continue to look at our cost recovery for the golf program, and that's why we chose that FT over others. And that program, that FT, the other FT we have is going to be dedicated to trail work and with our boulevards program that is unfilled right now, because in those positions we have long-term seasonal employees, which we should be only utilizing those seasonally, and that's what we're trying to get to as well. So, Commissioner Lant, you're correct. We may have 1 less FTE technically, but we'll have 1 more than we had today because we didn't have those filled because we didn't think they were funded until recently. And if we look back over the previous biennium, we had even fewer. However, we're still, 12 years ago, we had 52 FTE, and we had a whole other team of horticulturists that were working on our system. And so this is going to be a continued ongoing discussion and issue for us to face, and how do we manage those maintenance needs as we move forward, as well as our programming needs.
Okay, let's continue with the presentation so we can move forward.
We're nearing the end. Senior services, the increase in payroll is that reallocated Park Tech 1 from golf that has not been filled. And just to say something in terms of the need for this administrative assistant, from what I understand, the senior center is strained, so it's the position would do a lot in order to maintain and perhaps increase services at the senior center. So, and for materials and services, basically steady from the previous biennium to this biennium. So that is the breakdown of our by program. Now to talk about capital budget. The 7.3 million figure is the CIP plan, 6.2 million over the next biennium, plus debt services that we're still paying for Briscoe Elementary Park, the Kaye, and Garfield Park. We're nearing the end of all of those, so this will be our, I believe after this biennium, maybe we'll only owe about 50,000 left, so good news there. So that's where that figure comes in. And capital budget projects, I don't know if did you want to speak to these at all?
This is just a review of the previous CIP that's approved, and it's itemized there in regards to our preventive maintenance, major maintenance, park enhancements, and the planning, which is the PROS plan.
Revenue, technically I'm showing less projected revenue than the current biennium, excuse me. That is, it's basically steady. The only thing that's changed in terms of the bottom line is that for this biennium, there was $260,000 in anticipated park grants. We've been advised, and I think it's a good advisement, that we should really only budget for grants we know we'll be getting, and that's why it's only 120, which is the maximum 60,000 a year we can request from the Ashland Parks Foundation for the Japanese garden. That's really why we're showing. Basically, that's why we're showing less. We would technically be showing a little bit more. Park maintenance agreements, again, that 462,920 in the 26-27 column are just maintenance agreements that we have on the books now. That's why it's lower than the previous year. Kaye revenue is the same. Facility rentals, we think, with community center and the Pioneer Hall, and hopefully the recreation coordinator who can, activities. We would hope to see an increase facility rentals, golf rental fees, basically the same as the current biennium. We are aiming for golf to be revenue neutral, at least the customer facing, the program level. Adult recreation, we've lowered just because we haven't received the revenue that was projected for this biennium. Youth recreation is the same. Pool program, a little bit higher. Rink program, a little bit lower. Again, this is just based on the figures we have been taking in. Recreation events, we think will be higher. And nature center is the same. Senior programs, we've tripled, largely due to the great work that the senior center does with all of the classes that they offer. So we think there's definitely more opportunity there for revenue.
Do we think, I understand the accounting treatment of not counting grants until you have them wired down. Do we think we have more grant money out there that we'll be able to acquire reasonably?
Operationally, we will have some additional funds from the foundation that we'll be able to potentially access. We'll continue to look. This is on the operations side, so there isn't as many grant opportunities for programming or operations, but we'll continue to look at those. And then we do know of the two grants that were coming in on the capital side, of course, through state parks, and I believe we've budgeted those on the capital side. These are just on the operations side for that funding.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Lunt?
Yes, I was heartened to see what the significant increase in revenue for senior services. That's really wonderful. And that reflects on the good work they're doing. Really, from my perspective, the Nature Center is sort of similar. And I'm not quite sure why the revenues aren't increasing there. I think that really should be a goal, is to do something similar with the Nature Center. That's what's going on with the Senior Center.
Commissioner Lant, I appreciate that feedback, and definitely we are working at, as you all know, or may not, is that in the past the revenue came in primarily from school programs, and that funding model and that program has changed. We are working with the new manager to really look at the program and look at diversifying the type of programs and the outreach and the partnerships we are. So that is an objective, and over the next 6 to 9 months, we hope to come back and kind of tell that story. And of course, it'll be integrated into the PROS plan as well. So we have the same goal. It's just that we weren't, at this moment, confident in regards to a change in that revenue. Of course, just so everyone knows, if we get more revenue in, we'll still accept it and put it towards the good programs we're doing to offset our general fund utilization.
Yes, it does pay to be conservative on revenue estimates. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Keep
Okay,
going.
we're very close. You're going to see this slide again, but this is our department budget baseline. So if we don't request anything above, outside of the direction we were given, 15 million for operations, 7.3 capital, that equals 22.3 for the entire department. I will say that it is significantly lower than the current biennium. That's mostly due to the capital budget being so much lower this go around. Keep that number in mind, 2.3. And then this is the department budget with our budget requests incorporated, 15.7 for operations, same for capital budget, but for a total of just about 23.1 million. And so we have two options for you.
We have two motion options because, we like to provide variety for you. So option number one is the green number. So with all of our budget options, that's that total number. Option number two is our baseline with language talking about continue to pursue, which we've already submitted to finance those budget requests. And so it just adds the low end and then hopefully it goes up versus the hope and it may go down. That's hopefully the simplest way to determine which one you want to propose tonight.
I'm ready for a motion.
I move to move option number one forward, motion to approve the proposed FY 26-27 department budget of 23,096,343 and move it forward to the finance department and request support for the great work the park department's been doing.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Adams, thank you. Would you like to speak to that at all?
Yeah, sure. What I will say is someone new to the commission and previously looking at how budgetary structures have been created for the department and looking at the really fantastic work that's been done this year, it's really clear that it's a very thoughtful and conscientious approach to really figuring out the actual needs in order to deliver the services and the quality of parks that this community really has come to rely on, both for quality of life and for economic drive. There's some expanded land that we need to manage, some expanded programs we need to manage, and some deferred maintenance that needs to be managed. And I think this is the right budget to try to get us there. I think it's critical that we're able to move it forward, and I hope we can move it forward and get support from the city.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams?
Couldn't say it better than Commissioner Weiner. I also want to express appreciation for Commissioner Launt's questions of, what are we losing between option one and option two? And it's real on the ground work. So appreciate those questions, those clarifications by Director Houston. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Lant, any further comments? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bachmann,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Lant,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner.
Yes.
All yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And thank you, two gentlemen, for that detailed presentation. Okay, and now we'll move along to Recreation Division Advisory Committee appointments, and I have asked Deputy Director Dials to walk us through the process there.
Do we miss?
Scoot over if you want.
No. I will. I've got the wrong slide up.
That's okay. I forgot to.
Getting ahead of
Rachel
yourself.
Dials, Deputy Director. Just quickly, Parks and Recreation did a recruitment recently for the Recreation Division Advisory Committee, as we have 3 open seats. The recruitment ran from January 7th through February 5th, so almost an entire month. 7 applications were received. One applicant did not qualify because they did not live, they lived outside the city, and another candidate rescinded when we contacted them for an interview. So we had an interview panel. It was myself and our recreation manager, Lonnie Flora, and our chairperson of the RDAC committee, Corey Grimm. We conducted interviews, 15 to 20-minute interviews with all 5 candidates, and we used the same structure of questions as was done for the Trails Advisory Committee. We have three recommended appointments tonight: Catherine Danner, Julia Chapman, and John Spitzley. Sorry, when I said Julia Chapman, I meant Mary Chapman. Julia in parentheses, that's her. She goes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And so as the chair, I'm also recommending these 3 names, following up on the staff work, which was excellent. So we're open for a motion. Commissioner Adams?
I move to appoint the 3 recommended RDAC members to serve a 4-year term.
And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Either you'd like to speak to your motions and seconds? And Commissioner Lant, do you have anything to say out there? I can't see you at the moment.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachmann,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Lant.
Yes,
All yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And now we're to number 4 for Director Houston.
Do apologize for the lack of slides. We've been so focused on the focus groups. Our focus has not been on slides here tonight. Very quickly, we formed the Trails Advisory Committee. We were tasked with developing a charge, some key goals and objectives to kind of work on. Through our study session, I worked to hopefully capture the spirit of the feedback we got. The objective of the staff's moving forward right now for consideration is that this would be a 12-month, so through the remainder of this calendar year, of a charge to advise on the department's trail system for the review of new trail proposals and the process for reviewing those proposals, work with staff on the pros plan related to trail items, and the review trail program items as requested by staff. The motion is, I believe, a little different than I have it in the agenda brief, but it captures the same things I just said out loud. We would like this is staff's recommendation, and I put forth to you.
Any clarifying questions for Director Houston before we move along to a motion?
I thought I thought there was discussion about it being a 2-year.
We had talked about 1 or 2 years. You're correct, Commissioner Weiner. I left thinking it was a 12-month, but again, if it's a 24-month, that staff does have no problem on that. It was just assuming that there's going to be a lot of work in the first year, kind of setting up the foundation, and so as such, that's where I was wanting to make sure that it allowed us to come back with a different charge once we got that foundation done.
I think it still says 12 to 24 months. So it goes.
Is the motion, didn't, but we can, it's flex, we can go. Commissioner Lant?
yes. I'm thinking that the charge is really broad. So I just want to make sure it's really, this is the assist staff and ultimately the commissioners, but staff is really the one that this is going to matter to the most. So I just want to be real clear that this is fully supported, this charge is fully supported by staff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just feel like I think it's important that it be called out as a 24 months. I think in 12 months, you barely get your feet off the ground. You really get your foundations in. That's when the energy is really going to be happening and really delivering on that,
Well,
on the work they've done.
I'll ask
So
you to make the motion. Would you like to make the motion with that?
I'm happy to make the
Just
motion.
include that in your motion.
I moved, do I have to read it? I can.
You move this forward, but change it to where it's 24 months instead of 12.
That is what my motion is. Thank you.
Did you capture that?
No, basically, we're,
I'm happy to read through it. Sounds
okay, go ahead.
So I
That
moved.
would be best.
I move to adopt the charge for the Trails Advisory Committee for the 2025 to advise the departments
And 26.
and 26. Oh, right. I was going to say it differently, but 2025, 2026, 24-month period to advise the department's trail system by reviewing new trail proposals and the process for reviewing proposals, work with staff on the pros plan trail-related items, and review trail program items as requested by staff.
I will second that motion.
Would you like to speak further to your motion? It's not required.
I'll just say, I think it's a lot of great work's been done. A lot of great people are involved. I think they did great work in selecting a really broad and diverse group to do the work, and I think this will really advantage the community.
I too couldn't be happier with the group of people selected by staff to do this work. And I really appreciate the edits to this document. It's simpler, it's to the point. I understand what I'm reading. I'm a simple guy. And so I really appreciate your work, Director Houston and staff supporting you in revising this document.
Any further comments?
No, sir. Oh, I'm not allowed. You're looking at him.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bachmann,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Lant,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiner.
Yes.
All yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And our final business item tonight is a subcommittee for Windburn Way and Travel Management Project, and I'm listed here as the presenter. And I'll say that I'm going to change some language here, but do you have anything you would like to say just to set this up? I always prefer staff to do the
Sure. For background,
background part.
we had a commissioner come forward with a request to have a subcommittee or an ad hoc committee, some additional engagement on this one specific project at Lithia Parkway, given its importance and its potential impact. And as such, we reviewed different alternatives. We had our study session last week. Staff has brought forward or consolidated what we thought we heard, which is that the direction was to have a subcommittee formed, which would have two commissioners and the director to be on that subcommittee and work on a plan to then move the proposals and the process back here to the commission for a policy decision, hopefully by the end of this year.
Thank you. Now, one of the differences between this commission and the mayor-council form of the city government is that the mayor only votes in tie situations and therefore and does not make motions. But we're a little different. We have equal voting status up here, so I vote on everything. And I'm going to make the motion tonight as well on this one, which is something we do from time to time in this setting. So I move to form the subcommittee for Windburn Way Travel Management Project and appoint commissioners Gardner and Weiner as the two, I'll just leave it at that. Gardner and Weiner and Director Houston as the staff to the subcommittee. So basically, it's what's written there.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And I don't have much to say. I think this is a wonderful approach to what I wanted to change, and I'll do that here. In the memo was there's a note on the last bullet that the subcommittee will be coming up with a recommendation. That's not the right language. The right language is, just so everybody understands the nature of this subcommittee, it's multiple options addressing safety for all modes of travel on Windburn Way. Now, that does not need to be, that doesn't change the motion. I just wanted to be clear that this is a fact-finding group that's going to produce several options, and they're not going to recommend between the options. If it was if a recommendation decision was made, it would bring this committee in under the public meeting law, and we're not. That's not the intent. The intent is it's a working committee to develop options, and then the full commission will consider those options, and the decision will be made at that level. Okay. So that said, you have anything to say about the second? No? Anybody else? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Weiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachmann,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Lund.
Yes.
All yes, motion passes.
Thank you. That's our 5 action items completed. I don't know if there have been liaison opportunities since our last meeting, but this is a good time, or actually when we would like to have people speak to their experiences as liaisons. I know some of the liaison opportunities turned into focus groups, so that's a little different, but okay, Commissioner Weiner.
Yeah, I was able to attend the fire committee, and it was some really great work's being done by them to put in a proposal to get some grant funding to do some more fire risk mitigation. And they reported that they'd completed the vast majority of the burn piles that they needed. A few areas left, but have really been doing. They're ahead of what they thought they would be based on the delays with the snow, and are doing really fantastic work. We're really fortunate to have them looking after our hillsides.
Thank you. Anybody else have a liaison report? I don't. Okay, anything else from commissioners? Or staff?
When this is
Potpourri,
done,
potpourri.
I have upcoming parks meetings for the public is the last little thing that we
Okay.
can switch to that slide, but there's no pressure or hurry on it.
Well, let me just do my meeting dates, and then we'll do yours, and then we'll be ready to adjourn. Upcoming meeting dates: Parks Commission study session on April 2nd here at 6 o'clock. The Pros Plan kickoff meeting, April 8th at the Senior Center, 5:30. Is that right? The time's right. Parks Commission regular business meeting here, April 9th in the Commission chamber, in the Council chamber, and the Parks Commission study session of May 7th. Now that one, is that the joint meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so on May 7th at 6, in here, there will be a joint study session with the council and the mayor, and I'll be chairing that particular meeting. And the agenda is unknown at this point, but we'll be coming up with one. So we are going to be having at least 2 joint study sessions a year. There could be more. And this is the first one for this year, and the other one is scheduled in October, I think.
Correct.
And then the mayor will lead that discussion. Okay. And you have some meetings for us?
In addition, we have those neighborhood focus groups. The South meeting is going to be at the Temple Emek Shalom on April 17th from 5:30 to 7. On the April 23rd, our Central City meeting will be at SOU in the room 312, which is the Student Union. Stevenson's Union. Sorry, I'm used to being student union at all the other campuses I've been at, from 5:30 to 7 as well. There'll be a North meeting at the First United Methodist Church on April 24th, again from 5:30 to 7. We will be focusing each of those meetings on the South, Central, North. However, if you can't attend one of those, that input and that process is going to be value added for every person. We encourage you to come. I'm concerned now that the senior center might not be big enough for a kickoff meeting, but as Commissioner Bachmann says, that's something of riches.
Embarrassment of riches.
There it is. I'll get it down in like 27.
Okay, I think we're done. Meeting adjourned.
Yes, sir.